I just caught myself recording for like a random 5 minutes because I was trying to illegally record a conversation between me and my husband, who is in the next room over, because I was calling to ask him permission to share something quite personal that we've decided to do. And he didn't answer, I guess, because he's doing this thing called work. And yeah. And I was still recording, just over here dicking around. So decided to stop that and hit re-record. And I'm going to tell you the thing anyway, because I think it's important. And I'll just ask for permission and forgiveness later on. So we're going to get to that. But anyway, welcome to All In with Allie, the podcast for online entrepreneurs and female business owners. I don't even know my own intro. Who are ready to create the life and business of their dreams. I think I change it up every single time. Who cares? Hi, welcome. How was your Mother's Day if you're a mom? Hope it was amazing. I was a monster on Mother's Day, so we can talk about that. We can talk about that. So, Mother's Day. Mother's Day was one of my safer holidays. I have a thing with holidays. I usually don't love them because they just, I guess it's got to be this thing where like if your holidays weren't so happy as a kid, it just kind of sometimes can carry into adulthood. And like, for example, Christmas, I don't like to use the word triggering because I feel like we overuse that. But that's what it really feels like for me. It like Christmas time can trigger a little bit of like a mild, weird depression. And it's very strange, even like with the most conscious attempts at like rewriting the narrative, because I'm an adult now and I have my own kids now, and we get to do whatever we want with our holidays, and they get to be super fun and festive, and we really give it a good try. But I always find myself so thankful when they're done and dusted. I'm just like, oh, thank God we can move on with regular life. Well, Mother's Day was one of my safe holidays until this year because, as I'm sure you've heard, my mom's dead. So, wasn't really sure how that was going to go. I do, of course, have to say that I have a stepmom who has been in my life since I was a little girl, who is like so amazing. And I love so much to shout out to her. And, my mom's still dead. So it's still, very, very difficult. And I wasn't really sure how this was going to go. And it honestly went awful, like really freaking bad, but not because I'm not going to pull the grief card. I'm not going to put it all on that. It was truly because of me. I have the self-awareness and the wherewithal to look myself in the mirror and say, wow, you really did that. And it was me. And I really tried to burn it all down on Mother's Day. And I think this is important to talk about. So here's how this went for me. All right. So some context. Chris and I got into a little bit of a tizzy on Saturday. It doesn't matter why. It's not important to the conversation. It's just one of those stupid things that just like you both just all of a sudden just on each other. And it doesn't happen often. I'm very lucky, but Saturday, that's what happened for us. And the vibe 100% carried into Mother's Day, which is my day. Okay. I don't get a lot of days this year, but that is my freaking day. I just brought his second spawn into the world. This is my first Mother's Day as a mom of two. And apparently, unbeknownst to anybody, including myself, I had some expectations. I didn't think I had expectations, but boy, did I have some expectations. And I woke up and we can just speed up this story by saying those expectations were not met. And part of me, I know a big piece of this was because I knew that some of the saltiness from the night before was carrying over into the day. And I knew that had that not happened, he, my sweet, loving husband, would have probably been doing things a little bit differently on Sunday. So I was projecting some of that onto him. And I did the thing that is so obvious now that you know better. I know better more than anybody else. I know better not to do, which is to get on social media during a holiday. Okay. If a holiday is going to bother you, don't get on social media. You don't do it. Well, I did. I was buffering like a mother effer and was scrolling through Instagram and was seeing the most beautiful, sweet, loving, real or faux, who cares, displays of Mother's Day love that you can even imagine. I'm so happy for you, all of you. Really beautiful displays. And I'm sitting there and with every scroll, I'm just getting more and more. And I'm like, this motherfucker, God darn it. He's messing up. I was getting so angry at my poor husband. And he made the horrible mistake of asking if he could go work out, handed me the baby before I even got done with my first cup of coffee, asked to go work out. We had a family thing that day, so it couldn't even be like redeemed because right after that we had to get ready and go to this family thing that took all day. And I mean, I'm just like spiraling. Okay. So I have these unmet expectations of like, what did I expect him to do? I don't even know. I was just angry to be angry. I'm comparing myself to everybody else online. I'm sure there's a little bit of, maybe we can like kind of play the hormone/grief card just a little bit. I'm sure that had something to do with it. But when I tell you it manifested as like the Mother's Day monster of all time, that's who I was. It wasn't pretty. I'm not proud of it. And man, it was a doozy. It was a doozy. So luckily, Chris and I were able to come together with some cool heads and chill out a little bit by the end of the day. But this is like end of the day. Okay. So by this point, we've now been on not a good page together, on different pages for a good over 24 hours, which to me, that's too long. Like usually we're pretty good about like, we'll get into some friction. Maybe a couple of hours later, we've nipped it in the bud. This is now like wasted a full day of our lives. And that's too much for me. And so we're calm and collected. We're talking about it. We seek and reach a resolution, which I was so thankful for. And I had this realization that, you know what? I think we need therapy. This is the thing that I was going to ask him permission to share. And I really hope he doesn't care that I don't think he will, because I think it's really important to talk about. But here's why we are going to go to marriage counseling. I don't know what type or how or who, or we don't know yet, but we're going to do it. And here's why. Because I think it's so important as partners. I don't think, this is a fact. When you have two people who are in a relationship together, you have to be able to communicate in an effective way. That is like if you talk to anybody who's been married for any amount of time and you ask them like, what's the key to a happy marriage? Top 3 things they're going to say is communication. And I get it. And I fully get it. And what I'm seeing with our dynamic is we need some support there. We just do. So you know how when you get 2 hotheads in a relationship, it can create like a really awful dynamic, like really volatile and sometimes violent if it's a really, really bad situation, right? Like that's something that can happen with some people's dynamics. But with ours, see, I used to be a hothead. Okay. I'm like a hothead in recovery. I've done a lot of work on myself. He has inspired me a lot because he's like Buddhist monk when it comes to his calmness and energy around things. So he's balanced me out a lot. So like before we had a little bit of balance because like I would kind of force the conversation and like force, not saying that he didn't want it or anything, but like there was enough, I don't even know like how to explain it, but to like both of us walk away and just be silent and let it fester, that wasn't an option for me. Like I had to have the resolution, like we're going to talk about this now. And because of that, we would, thank God, successfully nip it in the bud and be fine and come out the other side. But now I'm a bit more chill. I'm starting to understand the power of words and how I come at people. #growth. And then he's who he is. So now it's like the battle of the egos. It's like battle of silent egos in a way, like passive aggressive egos, which is a recipe for disaster. I already see the writing on the wall because thank God our arguments and the things that we argue about aren't so big right now. It's all, like little petty stuff. Very lucky. But if and when we have something really big that we're dealing with, this is going to be a problem, like a big, big problem. And I see the writing on the wall. So we have decided we're going to go to counseling. And I think that's really cool. I'm really proud of ourselves. And I will continue to talk about this if this is something that you want me to continue to talk about. But I just want to share because it's so, just like the other day, on social media, it's so easy to look and be like, oh my gosh, everybody has it so perfect and it's so beautiful and it's so this and it's so not what I have. And not that things aren't beautiful and not that, everybody is faux flexing out there. I really don't think that at all. But I think if those of us who do have some platforms and choose to have a platform were honest about these type of things, it would be more normalized and we would choose healthier choices maybe and think to do these things for ourselves. Because I know this is a choice. We're just like, oh, we'll go. Like I have zero thoughts or fear around having or going to marriage counseling. To me, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great. But I think before I would look at that as like, oh God, are we failing? Is this something to be embarrassed about? But now, like some of the best couples that I know, and so many women that I work with are honest about this. And I find it to be very, very inspiring. And especially like in our situation, it's more, we definitely have things that we could work on now for sure that we can be better about, but it's also kind of in a proactive way, which I think also could be something that we all seek for ourselves and for our most important relationships, like our partners in life. A more proactive approach and healing things in advance versus when you really don't want to, which is when things get crazy, when things get a little close to too late. So anyway, there's that. Bet you weren't expecting that today, were you? Yay. Okay. What else? Oh, okay. So here's another thing. And by the way, I'm doing a whole podcast on the concept of up-leveling and signs of an up-level, because I'm just going to speak my own into existence right now. I feel like there is so much shifting in my world. It's kind of wild. Things that were working for me before that like in a slight conscious way, I was like, it could be better. We could tighten that up, but if it ain't broke, who cares type vibe. Now these little things, these like dust mites under the bed right? That we kind of like sweep under there. We're like, nobody can see it. It's fine. These are becoming very loud in my world and demanding my focus and attention and action, I guess. That's what it feels like. And I think like we could file the marriage counseling therapy decision under that. Because again, it's like these little things in relationships in my life that are like, is it perfect? No. But is anybody's perfect? You make these excuses and it's like, we'll just pretend that's not there for now. And now it's like all these things are rearing their head all of a sudden in my world. And I don't know why. I don't know what that means. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm just going through a wild spiritual awakening and I'm going to be enlightened and better than everybody else. That's what I'm pretending. Just kidding. So story time. You ready? Oh, this Thursday, before I get to that, this Thursday, I am having an interview come out with my girl, Kira Whitaker. She's a certified yoga therapist and health and wellness coach. And we have a conversation that deepens what I'm about to share with you. So I'm sharing like a little bit more of like a personal side, and she's bringing more of like a professional side to it as well, in addition to her personal experience on the matter. And you're going to hear this story again in that episode, but I'm going to share it here because it's important for the context. So, story time. A couple Mondays ago, I get up. This is on the tail end of a weekend where we were celebrating Chris's birthday. He wanted a crawfish boil. So my dad and my stepmom came in town and they helped us make all this food. Well, my dad made it all and that was great. But we like kind of supported and decorated and stuff. And we had just this really good time. And there were a lot of adult beverages that were had this Saturday. We had Jello shots, we had a keg, we had like this really fun rosé sangria situation. And then like Sunday came around and my parents were still there. So my dad made this crawfish etouffee. No, they were crawfish pies. And they were so good. And we're all like super hungover. So we had a little bit of hair of the dog, some mimosas. And that was that. And it was a great weekend. We had a very good time. And then Monday rolls around and it's time to get to work, right? I've got a full agenda of things that I need and want to do. And this Monday in particular was going to be my podcast day. I had the whole week mapped out, and which I usually don't, but this just like that needed to be the day that I recorded the podcasts. So I do everything that I need to do and I feel fine. I barely drank the day before. But I drank, we drank quite a bit on Saturday and, but I didn't feel physical feelings of being hungover. Okay. So I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I think I even worked out in the morning. I don't know. I can't remember now, but totally everything was fine. I thought. So I go and I sit down and I have like the thing that I want to talk about in the podcast, and I sit down just like I am now and I hit record and I start talking and I get about 2 sentences in and I have to stop recording because I couldn't form a train of thought that made sense. So I was like, okay, whatever. This happens sometimes. Stop recording, compose myself, look at my notes. Okay. Yep. Okay, cool. Hit record again, start talking, get about 2 sentences in, skirt. Nothing. It was like conceptually, I knew what I wanted to talk about, but my brain was like not turned on. That's what it felt like. And on top of that, like trying to think and like force thought and force speech and flow like you're hearing right now, it was just not happening. When I tell you, I recorded and stopped recorded and recorded and stopped recorded and recorded and stopped over 10 times. I sat there for a good hour and a half to 2 hours. I was like, okay, well, maybe it's just this topic. Okay, fine. Let's talk about something else. So I had another topic that I could talk about. So I tried to do that. It didn't work. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just do a podcast about where you're getting frustrated with yourself and you can't think of thoughts and you keep like I was just going to talk about like what actually was happening, like just having like a real conversation about what it's like to make, because sometimes that happens, right? Like sometimes you just cannot get into your flow and you got stuff that you got to do. So you don't have the time to be like, okay, I'll just do this later, or I won't do this today. Like sometimes there are deadlines in life and in work, right? So like you have to make it happen. So I was like, okay, I'll just talk about it from that perspective. I'll just own what I'm honestly dealing with. And even that wasn't working. And I actually do think I forced myself. I was like, I've done this so many times. I know what's happening right now, right? Like I know that this is just one of those days. Like what would I tell a client in this instance? I would tell her just like, if you can't record another day, just like push through and put it out. Like not all content can be bangers, and and this is true. Some episodes that I thought for sure were going to be the worst, the ones that like nobody liked, ends up being some of the favorites. So I was like, well, maybe this just needs to be one of those like raw, whatever episodes that I just put out because it is what it is. I don't know. And I forced myself. I sat there for, I think I got like 30 minutes in, maybe 25 if I'm even lucky. And finally I cut it off and I was like, that will never fucking see the light of day. And I was just so frustrated. I was sweating. It was hot. I was just like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I think? Why does my brain feel like, and then it was like, boom, just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, bitch, you're still hungover. You are still hungover. You can't think because your brain is bruised. Your brain is hurt right now. You've poisoned your brain all weekend long and you want it to perform like it normally does for you. And it's not, because it needs to recover. And I don't know how or why, or I don't know why it finally just this awareness just rushed over me. And I was like, why? Why did I do that? And it's not like, why did I choose to drink? I know, like, you can't, and I've talked about this in my story. So if you've heard me talk about this, just bear with me, but I have to say some things here just to make sense for this conversation, just in case you haven't seen those stories. But like, here's my relationship with alcohol. Okay. And actually, before I say that, I want to be clear. I got a message because I've been talking about this in my stories the past, week or so, just on and off. And I got a message the other day from this girl. She was like, I love this for you, but please don't all of a sudden start shaming people who still drink. She was like, not everybody is in the same boat and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, of course. Like, that was me just a week ago. I'm just being honest, like I always am with you, about where I'm at right now. And to me, this is leading to a lot of bigger discussions, which we will get to together as a collective. But I just want to be clear before I say anything more, this is in no way, shape, or form trying to shame or sway you to do anything different in your life. Period. Okay. Everybody is on their own journey. You know yourself better than anybody else. Okay. And this is just honestly where I'm at right now. And it's kind of blowing my mind for, again, many reasons, which we will talk about here. But I promise you this, again, I'm not going to be that person who's just like, I don't drink anymore. And if you do, you really, like, I'm not going to try and talk you into doing something that you don't want to do. I will bring the conversation here like I am now. And I will bring other perspectives. on this subject here, but we can handle that, right? Like I know I listen to a few podcasts, and I've always been like, something in me has always been kind of like curious about, this hashtag sober curious conversations. And I would just listen just from, again, like a pure curiosity point of view of like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder why and how that's working for them. And then I'd be like, cool, gonna go have a glass of wine now, because that's just not where I was. So I just want to say, don't judge yourself. I'm going to bring content here just like I always do, because it's relevant to my life. And this is just what we do here, whether it's about alcohol or engagement on social media or money-making activities or whatever. This is all in all the things. So anyway, I just like, don't worry, but I hope you can hear this and just trust your own path and where you're at as it relates to this, and don't make it mean anything. Okay. But if you do hear this and your heart is wanting something different, I hope you'll trust that too. So anyway, back to what I was saying. So a little context on like the alcohol situation. I come from a background where alcohol was always present. Always. My mom was a hardcore alcoholic. Like my whole life, it got like way worse as I got older, but was a functional alcoholic my whole life until she wasn't. And then it turned from like functional to not so much functional. And, several stints in rehab, finally one of which it finally stuck. But, anyway, I'm not going to share anymore. So, that like my whole life, I would say 99% of my worst memories and, traumas in my life are alcohol related. But not only that, but it's always been present. It's always been normalized in my life. Now, from what I understand about alcoholism is alcoholism is a disease. If you're an alcoholic, it is a disease. From what I understand, and I could get this wrong, so don't quote me on this, there's some gene present, and you can get it later in life, by the way. That's something that kind of blows my mind too. But there's some gene present that makes you more susceptible to alcoholism as a disease. I think that's how it works. Anyway, I've seen enough alcoholics in my life, and I have others in my family, unfortunately, where I'm in my own body. Like I know I'm not an alcoholic. I don't have that. I don't need it. I don't binge drink. There's nothing like that for me. Okay. And the way that Chris and I have been navigating alcohol in our relationship is like, it's just fun for us. Like that's the label that we have attached to alcohol. It's fun. It's how we, burn steam and just like let loose. And it's like the thing that we look forward to on the weekend is just, having some fun. And, maybe on weeknights, like I just love me a fancy glass with some wine in it. And that's so like nothing crazy. But I think that that's important to share because again, everybody has their own relationship to alcohol. And there's some people, like, I think the way that I think about it is like the difference between need and want. For me, I just wanted it because I attached fun, the idea of fun to alcohol. That's what you do in social settings. That's how I come out of my shell, how I burn steam and celebrate, right? Is alcohol. And then there are people who, quote, need it. They can't help themselves. This is a big difference. So in a second, when I tell you that I've stopped drinking for the time being, and we're going to talk more about that, I don't want you to think like, oh gosh, like if it's not coming as easy to you, I think that that's something to think about. I'm not telling you what to do with your life, but you get what I'm saying. Okay. So anyway, that's like the context of drinking for us. So anyway, we had this weekend where we just had fun, and it was a great weekend. And then Monday, I'm hungover, and I don't know if it's just, I'm 35. So it's not like I haven't experienced freaking hangovers before, right? But this is the first time that I experienced it, that I noticed that it's altering my work, right? Like my values in life are like obviously my family, and then health, and then my work, my body of work, what I put out into the world, like being able to utilize my brain and my creativity. That is a huge value of mine. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing this huge discrepancy where my choice is now affecting my work, which could create, I mean, you can just imagine the ripple effect of this. If this is something that I really want to pay much attention to, or just say, oh, well, who cares? It's, that's my weekend activity. This is my week activity. But here they are, they're conflicting now. This is a problem. And again, it just, for some reason, hit me like a ton of bricks. And I just had this awareness. I was like, okay, I don't need this. I'm not an alcoholic. This isn't something that I could turn it off at any time, no problem. And the only thing that would bother me is just that I'm going to have to associate fun with something else, right? So if it's not something I need, then it's something that I'm choosing. Why am I choosing this? And I just started thinking about how, there's a difference in recreational drinking, which is great if you can handle it. And there's a time and a place for sure. And I still think there is. I don't foresee myself being like a straight up sober, no alcohol person. I don't think. Who knows at this point? But there's a time and a place for that, in my opinion. But at the same time, in my situation, I noticed too that there was like a lot of reaches and uses of alcohol that weren't for recreational reasons. And it's like, I don't even really want it. I'm just doing it because that's what you do. And this is what really blew my mind. Okay. So what I mean is, like, during the week, like after a day of work, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to get a glass of wine now. Okay, I'm cooking dinner, or I'm hanging out with Chris while he cooks dinner. I'm going to get a glass of wine. We're having spaghetti. I'm going to have a glass of wine. I'm taking a bath. I'm going to have a glass of wine. It's warm outside. I'm going to have a glass of wine. It's raining. I'm going to have a glass of wine. It's freezing. I'm going to have a glass of wine. Right? It's like, okay. And for me, my personal experience, I don't even really want this glass of wine. Often, I don't even finish it really. Sometimes I do, for sure. But a lot of times, it's just like, I'll take a couple of sips. I don't even love the taste, if I'm being honest with you. It's an acquired taste. I've acquired it. But like I'll have a few. It's more for like, this sounds crazy, but it's like the vibe for me. That's what it is. I just want the glass. It's the practice. It's the ritual of it. That is what is calling me to it, not the wine itself. But instead of realizing that, I'm like consciously or like unconsciously choosing this thing that I don't even really want for the ritual of it, that like it could be anything. Like, why not just use the glass or whatever? So anyway, I just realized like I'm choosing this thing that is in direct conflict with some major values in my life, right? And I shared this in my stories the day, like I had this awareness, and I pretty much immediately shared this in my stories, which you never know how that's going to go. And I am so amazed by the amount of people who are like, me too, 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 me too. I think in a sea of 100 people who were like, holy crap, I've been thinking about this, or that I haven't drank since, whenever. This is something that we're thinking about too. Wow, this is how I'm feeling, blah, blah, blah. I think out of a sea of 100, there was like two people, who were like, I'm just not there yet, and who were so honest about it. And I'm pleased when you hear that, because I was one of those people, guys. I was one of those people just a week ago. Okay. I might be one of those people again next week. Truly. I'm really like, I'm genuinely just like floating on this wave, like so curious about where it takes me, and just trusting my heart and my body, and like, we'll see where this goes. And I'm full surrender over here. But like, up until like, I was that person, like, F that, do you, but like, I love my wine. I love to have a good time, whatever. And then something shifted. So I shared that in my stories, and it was that day I was like, you know what? I'm going to at least be more conscious with the choice now, instead of just grabbing for it because that's just what you do, because that's what I've always seen, because that's just whatever. It's so normalized in our culture too. That's a whole other conversation. I was just like, I'm going to be more conscious about it, about what I am choosing to put in my body. And I haven't had a drink since, and it's been a week. And actually, that's not even fully accurate. I had a beer over the weekend. Not that it matters, but just being fully transparent. And I forgot about that. But other than that, that's it. Like, drastic difference compared to where we were just a week ago. And when I shared this in my stories, I got, so many interesting perspectives, one of which was like, it is really interesting when you think about it, because you talk so much about how health is important to you, and how like you never, get sick, and how that's something that like you really speak into existence for yourself. So like, to continue to put, a poison in your body at any rate, it just doesn't make sense. And I just never, like, that conceptually, we know alcohol is not good for us. Everybody knows that. But when you really think about it, and then on top of that, when you allow yourself to dive into what a neurotoxin is and like what that actually does, like for those of us that are creators that need to use our brain for work or to create, this is so important. And I knew that it was one of those things that's like out of sight, out of mind. Like, just, I don't want to learn too much about it because I wasn't ready to walk away yet. And now, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I just am. I just feel different about it. I don't want it. All week long, I didn't want it. Not even a little bit. I got my wine glass out and I put Spindrift, which if you don't drink, I feel like everybody drinks Spindrift now. But if you're not on Spindrift, holy hell, it's just sparkling water with real fruit juice in it. So not like fake fruit juice, and no artificial sweeteners or any sweeteners at all. Like, it's sparkling water with real lime juice or whatever the fruit is. And they are incredible and so refreshing. So I love me a lime Spindrift, and I'll just pour that in my glass, and it's like, it does it for me. It does it for me. So like, if you drink your wine because you're looking for that edge, or, to feel a little of the edge off of the day, that's different. That's not what it was for me. Now, here's the thing that I'm going to have to work through, that I already see coming, is I'm a big social drinker because I'm an introvert, and I feel like, and especially the older I get, I feel like I'm getting a little bit more of like a social anxiety. I don't know what that's all about. So anytime that I can get my hands on a glass of wine or a cocktail, it makes me feel like I can relax more. and be more outgoing and fun and social. So I have not had a social situation yet since I've had this personal breakthrough, and I don't know how that's going to go. But again, I might just decide, okay, this is a special occasion. I'm going to have a glass of wine. Who cares? It's, balance, right? But just like the big thing for me, and this is, if there was anything that, like, any big reason why I wanted to bring this conversation here, it's the notion of the conscious versus unconscious choice. Like, what are you choosing with your whole mind and awareness? And is that in line with your values? That's it. This could be alcohol. This could be a relationship. This could be anything that you're choosing to do in some capacity. And for me, I just realized I was choosing this, but not really thinking about why I was choosing it. And when I thought about why, I was like, I don't want to make that choice. Wild. Is this 35? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. So that's where I'm at with that. I'm truly just taking this, like, I'm just, one day at a time. We'll see where this takes me. I know Chris and I have a date at the end of the week, and I think I will gladly indulge in a cocktail at the end of the week, but maybe not. We'll see. So I don't know, but I wanted to bring that here and give you some background on that because, one, I think it's important. I'm going to continue talking about it too, because I'm just being honest with you. I can tell a difference just from a week of mostly not drinking. I can tell a difference. Oh, okay. Before we move on from this conversation, this is important too. This was kind of like a massive breakthrough for me too, because the only time I have ever taken long breaks from alcohol is when I was pregnant, obviously. And this was wild to me because how many times have I been talking and reflecting lately about how amazing last year was business-wise? I was on my freaking game. I was creating like a madman. I was putting out offer or program after program after program. I was traveling. I was just like, it felt like in the peak of my career thus far was last summer into fall, spring, summer into fall. I was just on fire. Okay. I was pregnant. And yeah, I'm sure if you are fortunate like me to have a good pregnancy that's agreeing with you, I think pregnancy hormones do help. And there's a lot going on in your body, obviously. And we cannot ignore the fact that I was completely 100% sober for months and months and months. So I'm getting, how pregnancy is with sleep, but I didn't have a newborn yet. So if I need to catch up on sleep, I was able to do that. And not, I was eating and fueling my body really well because that's what my body was calling to me because I was pregnant and I was completely sober. So can we make that correlation? I think it's probably fair. I don't think that's the only factor, but it had to have definitely not hurt the situation. So there's that. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. But every day last week, I was like, I just don't want it, even on the weekend. And Chris is like, we're not 100% on the same page with this. I think he's a little like, I don't know. He's just like, oh man, but he gets it because he gets the health side of it, but he just didn't have this big breakthrough like I did, even though of course I shared it with him. And, so on the weekend, he did his thing like we normally do. And he was like, do you want one? And I was like, no, I really don't. And that was kind of weird, but we'll see where that goes. So anyway, massive update that I never expected to share in any way, shape, or form ever. Not because I wouldn't with you, but because I just didn't think that would ever be part of my journey. But here we are, blowing my mind every single day. Let's see. What else? Family update. Rhett is crawling. He's now 8 months and he is crawling. We are fully 100% co-sleeping. I think I've shared that before, that we were like kind of co-sleeping. Well, it's just game over. We are not only co-sleeping, but this child, my sweet, sweet angel, refuses to sleep unless he is under my arm, like in the nook of my arm around him. If he is not right there within perfect proximity, leaning in 2 inches to the boob, he ain't sleeping. So I've created that. Go mommy. And then the last thing, I want to leave you with a big takeaway, and something that I've shared like a little bit before in a previous episode, but I'm going to reiterate again because I really do believe that we all go through things in life, and you can look at different experiences and through multiple different perspectives, of course. But I really do think that a lot, if not all, of the things that we experience in life are meant to happen for the wisdom that we can extract from it. So I want to share this again because like the wisdom of this situation is pelting me in the face every single day and like nearly taking me out. And I have to share it because I know that I'm meant to. But as we've talked about, I lost my mom last year, and it's such a mind F because we had such like a complicated relationship. I don't know if you watch Succession. Oh my God. I don't know if you watch Succession. If you don't, go watch Succession. It's so damn good. But in the latest episode, this isn't really a spoiler, but freaking Shiv and Tom were having a conversation. They were kind of going at it. And she was like, yeah, well, oh, wait, this is kind of a spoiler. I mean, it's been a few episodes now. Okay. Spoiler alert for Succession. If you have not seen episode 3 and up, fast forward a couple of minutes, okay? Because I'm going to spoil it. But anyway, Shiv and Tom are arguing. She was like, yeah, well, I just lost my dad. And he was like, yeah, well, you hated him. And she was like, what do you mean? He was like, literally, you couldn't stand your dad. And she was like, yeah, but I mostly loved him. And he was my dad. And there's been no truer line said about my mom. I didn't hate my mom, but that's how complicated our relationship was, especially like kind of towards the end. It was just so up and down, and a lot of down. And she just got on my ever loving nerves and just drove me up the wall. That woman drove me up the wall. And most of the time I let her know, and we would fight about it. And it was just, and now I have all of this shame and sadness and just, I mean, every memory that I have, I'm like, I grimace. I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I said that. And if I could only turn back time, but you can't. And anyway, so I want to share this because something that's happening, which is, oh man, such a timely gift. God, you gotta love the universe. I'm having also these like weird, I don't even know what to call it, like life wisdom upgrades, downloads. I don't know what you call it, but all of a sudden, the things that I didn't understand about my mom and the life choices, some of the life choices that she made that like as her child, I couldn't understand. And on top of that, it just made me so angry towards her. And I like had so much animosity for some of the choices that she made in her life. Now I'm starting to understand why she made these choices. No. Like, why? Why now? Could this have not happened a fucking year ago? Like, are you kidding me? I'm talking like things, for example, her leaving my dad and the way, I'm not going to like share and like divulge all of the drama for you, but maybe one day in a book, but like the way she left my dad. And it's like, how could you? I love my dad. My dad's the best. Like, how could you do that to him? He was so heartbroken. And like, as a kid, I witnessed that. And like this like victim bratty approach to it. And like, I just gave her so much shit for it. And now as an adult, and only recently, for some reason, I can kind of like look and think back on the situation and be like, I might have done the same. Fuck. God, why? Why can't I have thought about this sooner? Oh, you gotta laugh to cry. It's just not laugh to not cry. You gotta laugh to not cry sometimes. The frick. So anyway, that's just like one example, but like there's been things like that. And I'm like, oh my God. And also like as a woman, I would have loved to have like more of a mature conversation around these things of like, cause I'm sure there are things that like, obviously I don't know because I'm the kid in the situation, just like woman to woman have this conversation of like, hey, why did you make that choice? And like, let's talk about it. And I can't. So, okay. So there's that, right? Like, I just want you to like, just table that. And then again, this is the one that I've kind of already shared, but like, it's like so hitting home for me is this idea of like, I had this woman in my life that now that she's gone, all of the incredible things of who she was is just like, that's all I can think about now. And it's so obvious and it's so glaring. And like, I overlooked it all and just couldn't see any of it because I was so fucking focused on the negative and like the things that she was doing that I thought she should have been doing differently because I'm God and I know how people should act apparently. And anyway, so I overlooked, I just couldn't see all the good things. So now that she's gone, I see all the good things. And I'm like, God, what I wouldn't give just to like have another conversation and just hug her and blah, 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 blah. And now I can see how I do this and how I'm actively doing this with other relationships in my life, right? Maybe with some close friends who like might get on my nerves and I don't really like, I feel like I could appreciate more. I do this with Chris, my kids, right? Like, again, we get to choose what we focus on and not saying that you just don't pay attention to things that need to be paid attention to, but we get to choose what we focus on, right? And I think like, it's so easy to let people, like really let people get to you and get on your nerves and focus on that when you assume that they'll be there forever, right? Like, I'm just going to focus on this stupid thing and I'm going to, let you get on my nerves and I'm going to take you for granted and I'm going to treat you this certain way because you're going to be here forever. And one day we're going to be able to rectify this situation. And then sometimes that day doesn't come. So I just want to share that again. Okay. Because there might be somebody in your life that you love dearly that is amazing and also probably has some faults because they're human, and you might be focusing a little bit too much on the human aspects versus the things that they bring to the table that are so incredible that you're so grateful to like really like if they were gone, you would miss so much. So it really, I think if there was any kind of gift with loss and grief, it's that juxtaposition, that wisdom, right? Of like, oh man, now at least I get to move forward in my current relationships with that wisdom. So I would love for you to adopt this now before you have to lose somebody very close to you to then be like me where I am and wish that you had done things differently. Because if I could, I would do everything differently. I would do everything. Okay. Anyway, that was my social service. You're welcome. I love you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you next time. Bye.